Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Tonight, I'm trying something new. I'm going to go live on and stream on Instagram as well. So just bear with me. There's a few technical things I have to do, but I'm going to do it right now. Let's see if it works. One moment. Oh, I guess it did work. We'll find out. All right. So, again, tonight is another episode of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Tonight, I'm just going to put it out there right now. There may be some trigger warnings. So, I really want you all to just be intentional. And if you feel like you need to log off, it's fine. If you do feel like you can't stay in there, or if you know of any friends, family that can benefit from the resources that are going to be sent, please share this video. So before we do that, I'm going to play this intro.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti. Black girl magic, melanin popping. Whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
All right, we are back. Again, thank you for tuning in to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. My name is Ursula B, and I'm a Black girl just trying to get my shift together as well. Before we get started, if you're listening on the replay, please type replay in the comment section. Share this video with at least two of your friends. If it's on the audio, make sure you can share it as well and give your girl a 5-star review. I really appreciate everyone that's been tuning in. We're at over 100,000 downloads, as well as on Amazon Music as well with the podcast. So it's very well, but I appreciate everybody for all the support that they've been showing. So tonight we are going to get into talking about DV and some resources that can be shared. Sometimes we think we know everything, but there's nothing like it coming from people who are actually in the trenches and they know what goes on in the day-to-day as far as being advocates. So I'm going to bring these wonderful, beautiful ladies. When I take them out of the waiting room, you're going to see how pretty they are, but their insides match their outside as well. So I'll start with Dilma. Hello, beautiful.
Hello. My name is Dilma Dos Reis. I am a victim advocate. I actually serve all areas of advocacy when it comes to victims of crime. DV is one of my passion. Is my passion. It's I am an advocate, a DV advocate as well.
Love it. All right, I'm going to bring out the next beautiful sister. Hello, Paula.
Hi, my name is Paula Dupree. I am a criminal investigator that right now currently investigates felony domestic violence cases, but I've been in law enforcement for over 20 something years at this point, and domestic violence, special victims on a whole is where my heart is.
Love it. Love it. So I just want to give people a little history on how all of us met. Dilma and I, we've known each other for a few years. We used to work out together. So if anyone who's watching on Facebook, if she looks familiar, this is the fourth row spin diva. No, used to be in the front row. The front row. The front row. And so that's how her and I met. And I always tell everyone, get to know your people around you, because you never know the impact of someone right next to you or in front of you, in my case, you just never know what they do, how they can be your resource to your friends or family or even to yourself. So I'm glad, Dilma, you and I had already connected. You just never know, but for us to have our conversations, it happened when it was supposed to, the deeper conversations on what we do.
Correct. Yeah.
And Paula, Miss Fly AF came in. We both were invited by Dilma to be on a DV panel, and Paula came in, and I'm like, she sat next to me. I'm like, this sister is fly. The nails, the chocolate, beautiful skin, just the makeup. Remember, I said that to you. I don't know, was it your makeup or your nails? I complimented you on. What was it?
I, I think I remember both. However, you're making me blush just like you did then.
I'm just saying. I was like, oh, she's just so fly with the power suit. And I'm like, you know what? This is what I'm talking about. And I just love it. And then Dilma with legs for days. Just,
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And so, Paula, you're already getting a hello.
Hey, friend.
Hey, friend. All right. So let's talk about DV, domestic violence. I don't know if YouTube will let me say it, but we'll say DV from here. So either one of you can just jump right in, and if you all can talk about what DV is, how does it look on your end, Dilma, and then how does it look on your end, Paula?
Paula, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I want to say domestic violence, because we have to get in a place where we're comfortable with saying domestic violence, with normalizing people vocalizing the effects of domestic violence, because it's prevalent in our society, it's harmful to our society, and it affects all gambits of life. It doesn't matter your wealth status, whether you're in an affluent community or not. Everybody experiences domestic violence in some way, shape, or form. If you haven't personally experienced it, been a victim of it, or a perpetrator, then you definitely know somebody. The issue is that we have a lot of secrecy surrounding domestic violence. So the words are powerful. Our words are powerful. So we want to make sure that we're actually saying domestic violence, and we make people comfortable with knowing what domestic violence is, and vocalizing how they feel about it and how it's impacted them. On my end, with the investigating of these felony cases of domestic violence, these are cases that are, so I actually do domestic violence murders. I'm prepping for a case for Monday, so I won't go into particulars about it. But what I want everyone to understand is the magnitude. Domestic violence is not only hitting, or it's not just verbal abuse or physical abuse, but it sometimes leads to murder. It sometimes leads to, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We want people to speak up and speak out. It takes a level of courage. It takes a level of strength to come out on your own and say, this thing is happening to me, especially in our community where Black women are supposed to be strong and they're supposed to be everything for everyone. We have a hard time coming forward and saying, this thing is happening to me. And so we're just trying to get into a space, and that's what that's all about. This is what you do, we do, is make sure that people understand it's okay to say that this is happening to me and I want it to stop. And then that's where we come in the prosecution of these crimes. But on my end, it's the investigation of the crime, what led up to the things that happened, what actually happened, and getting the justice for the victims and survivors, I should say, of domestic violence. So that's what it looks like on my end, just a snippet of it.
Wow, that's powerful. I do agree about using now that you say it, using the word. Sometimes I do pull back just because YouTube won't allow some words being said, like grape, take right, because they'll flag the channel. But in regular conversation, I do understand it because being a mental health advocate myself,
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand about keeping secrets, especially in the Black community. We hoard secrets and we hold it tight to our chest. I
Yes.
mean, I've done it, so I get it. That's why I have a lot of empathy, but it does take practice to normalize the conversation and just like you said, being comfortable about it because when there's so much secrecy, you just never know what goes on behind closed doors. I mean, I know you all do, but just it could be somebody right next to you and you just never know. I know when I've shared some of my story, um, my childhood friends said that they never knew.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that something? And then even
Exactly.
Yes.
as a child, I learned to hold a secret because that's just what it was like a family heirloom. It's just what
Mm-hmm.
we do.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then it's domestic violence. Anyone that is experiencing domestic violence is usually it's very embarrassing. I speak with the women all the time, and when they pour their hearts,
Mm.
it's almost at the last minute. You just don't go because of the stigma of you being labored as a battered woman. So you keep that. It is embarrassing, depending. I don't care what your social status is, it is embarrassing. I
It
mean,
is.
for me to go to my friend and said, I'm getting my ass beat,
Right.
or I'm like, I'm being abused. And that's big. It takes courage,
Mm-hmm.
So for me as an advocate, I empower women to come out and speak out and provide resources that are available for them so they don't keep keep up with abuse, do not keep up being abused.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that for me, empowerment is very big
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm.
so the your seeking for help doesn't come without empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Love
So
that.
when we don't empower people, when people come to us, if they don't feel empowered, they will go back to their abuser because they used to it, and then the abuser they find comfort on that abuser. And then so we are here. My biggest thing is to empower women so they can leave, they can exit the
Mm.
relationships.
That is, woo, I love when you said about the empowerment. But before I get into that, I see a lot of people in the chat. If you all can just drop a hello to these beautiful ladies in the chat, make sure you hit the subscribe button because I want you all to be able to come back to this video so that you can share it with other people, other men and women. We all need the help. So, back to the empowerment part, how does it look when people give you all pushback on being empowered? Because you're right, trauma bonds are real. And when an abuser, or would y'all call it the perpetrator? What's the
Is an abuser is fine.
okay?
Abuser.
Yeah, they seek solace in that. So how can you when you talk to the survivors, victims, how does it look when they give you pushback?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Correct.
It looks like getting cussed out, not cursed out, cussed.
What? Paula, what did I say, girl? You all
It
kind
looks-
of bees and hoe? What? What?
I'm telling you, it's imagine that
Mhm.
you're getting we're coming to you and we're asking you to confront this thing. This
Right.
person is your husband, your wife, because we have, I mean, I want to make it clear that we have same sex domestic violence as well
As well.
as heterosexual. So it happens in all, like I said, in all spectrums. And we have this thing where the victim is still in love with the abuser, or this is their husband, this is the father of their children, this is their wife, this is the person they've been with since forever, and they're not ready to see this person go to jail, because if they
Mm.
come forward and they bring it to law enforcement's attention, then it becomes a thing that a crime that we must prosecute. It is a crime. What they're not looking at is what we're trying to stop is you're alive to come and tell me that something is wrong. You're alive to be able to seek help,
Oh,
to get
yeah.
justice. Whereas
Mhm.
there are people who don't make it, who
Correct.
are killed by their abusers. We have,
Mhm.
like I said, we have domestic violence murders.
We'll say
Oh,
unalive for because of YouTube. We'll say unalive.
unalive. I'm sorry.
No worries, son. I know YouTube will not let us be great and say earners instead of adding the M.
Right?
Mm.
And I don't want this to be flagged. I want this message to get out because I learn
Yeah.
something new every time I talk to Dilma more. Paula
Mhm.
and I, we're gonna definitely reconnect more, but
Yes.
every time I talk to Dilma, I learn something new.
Yes.
I just had no idea. So I definitely want this to get YouTube. You're gonna make us be great on this stream. Okay. But go ahead. Go ahead,
So,
Paula.
But you got to think it's like, and as in some of the cases where the abuser is the financial support for the whole family. So if he goes to jail or she goes to jail, then what happens to the family? What happens to the children? And Dilma, I know you can definitely speak to that because we have a lot of that that we
correct.
see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have to also understand the Stockholm syndrome, like where
Mhm.
the victims is protecting their abusers for however reason it is. I mean, sometimes financially, sometimes like emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to understand as well that um, domestic, like there's a cycle of domestic violence, right?
Yes.
So it's
Mhm.
not always bad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so today,
Yes.
she's been hit or whatever, but he comes back, he begs, and it tells her, you know what, baby, I made a mistake. This is not who I am. So I'm gonna try to do better. So for her to come and tell us, but she knows he's not a bad person. He just had a outburst. You know what I mean? So we gonna look like a bad guy when we try to
Mhm.
prosecute this person. And then sometimes victims don't understand that we are protecting them. Because we did have a cases that, okay, they come back to say, oh, we wanna drop the charge. They plead with us. They don't want to they don't want to move forward. But later they end up with a more serious injury if it's not
Mm.
not alive, you
Yes.
know.
Right.
So it's very intense when we work with those victims. So how do we get pushbacks from them? So we have to understand the dynamic and then the trauma behind you
Mhm.
know the abuse as well. We have,
Exactly.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
What were you about to say?
I said we have to understand the trauma behind the abuse
Mm-hmm.
and the victim. The abuser and the victim, they both have a trauma that they bond,
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I used to, I, I'm going to be transparent. I used to be that person. Why don't they just leave? Why don't, little did I know about Stockholm Syndrome and trauma bonds. I had no idea about that. And I really want people to realize how strong the mind can be. And when you're locked in on that person, and you're right, Dilma, especially with unresolved childhood traumas or adult
Correct.
traumas, I don't know, that does make an imprint on us. When I was in therapy and I had learned that, especially with the childhood trauma, with how the cycle of abuse keeps going, and
Hmm.
when you said like the abuser he is or she is probably the best thing since sliced bread, but that 80% they're assholes, abusive, but we hold on to that 20%, and then that spills over into childhood, and that's how it looks in relationships sometimes, and you just ignore that 80% of how they have been abusive, and like you're right, they're not that bad, but in
Hmm.
reality they are. The mind is very, very strong, and that's when I realized that yeah, Ursh, you need to have more empathy for people who are in these situations because it's a stronghold, a very stronghold on it. Um, do you all ever have any therapists or social workers?
We all trained psychologists,
Mhm.
social workers. So we all trained people that I work with as victims. So I wanted to say something. We have to understand. Maybe this. I'm hoping that what I'm about to say is not going to offend anyone.
Mhm.
So I'm going to say we have to understand like how our relationships affect our children, right? So if
Yes.
we are in abusive relationship and we have children, okay, so those children, they either going to become a victim or they become an abuser. So that is the we all know that that happens every day, and then
Yes.
that's how it forms.
Mhm.
Okay, the abuser, something happened to him.
Yes.
He probably witnessed the domestic violence his whole life. He thinks that is normal.
Yes.
Okay, or he was abused as a child.
Yes.
So we have to know these things. It's like, and then we also have to understand that how our relationship, our upbringing our children will affect the society and then how they will accept abuse in the future.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Absolutely. We have to, I think when we did the DV panel together, Ursula, we talked about the culture, and
Mm-hmm.
how sometimes how you're raised has a lot to do with what you think is
Mm-hmm.
acceptable. And if you
Mm-hmm.
were raised and you saw your father beating your mother, then you somehow think that's normal. You thought you
Mm-hmm.
think that's acceptable, that you're somehow out of line.
Mm-hmm.
And so the it's like a getting back. The same way you spank a child is the same way that that father's disciplining the mother. And
Mm.
so it seems like that's a correlation, and so that's why we accept it and we think that it's okay because, well, it happened with mommy and daddy, and that's right. Aunt Janice, hurt people. So
Yeah.
it's like you're raised in this environment, and then you don't, it's not a, just like Dilma is saying, it's not that you want to, it's not that you are planning to, but you then push forth the same thing when you get older.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
let's take like any instance. A young man sees his mother getting beaten, and then when he grows up and he gets in relationships, when things don't go the way he thinks they're supposed to go, then he ends up putting his hands on his girlfriend, his wife, and he thinks that this is this is what's supposed to
What's
happen.
the
This is
difference?
what's supposed to be okay.
Mhm.
Flip that coin, a young girl or being raised, and I'm not, and please don't hold me to the genders.
Right, right.
A young girl growing up seeing her mother getting beaten grows up to think that this is acceptable, that
Most
this is what
definitely.
love looks like, and if he beats me, then that's what's supposed to happen because he's the head of this household and what he
Right.
says goes, and so I have to follow that line, and if I fall out of line, it's something I did wrong, so he's just correcting me.
Isn't
Correct.
that something?
Yes. Hmm.
Do you all
It's
have any adolescent or teenager, young adult cases that come through you, or is it just adults?
yes, we have a lot of,
Unfortunately.
yeah, fortunately.
What?
Unfortunately, this is
Hmm.
happening in high school. This is
Yeah.
happening everywhere. It's not just when I become in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. It's a thing that's happening with young people as well. And we are just, and especially because we're not mature enough to vocalize how we're feeling. They're not able to articulate like they need to. So their first instinct is to hit.
Mm.
You made me angry, you hurt my feelings, so
Hmm.
instead of vocalizing that, I hit you, and that's how we're gonna come to an understanding, because you're gonna understand by me hitting you, don't do that thing again.
Isn't that something? And you're right. And then they do it as adults in adult relationships. And it's just, to me, it's like having, of course, exerting that control, but having these adult tantrums instead of using
Yes.
your words.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we do a lot of education around teen domestic violence because it's prevalent. We see a lot. So,
Yes.
however, a lot of young children, I would say children, they're in the relationship with another, young man or young lady, and sometimes they think that hitting or punching, it's normal, it's the sign
Mm.
of love. Um, because an abuser, we have to understand, he will hit her and said, well, that's not, I didn't mean to, whatever, I love you, and let's make this happen. And then she will go on, being abused and not really realize that is abuse, and then she is in an abused relationship. Because when you're young, you can, like Paula said, you can articulate like what is happening to you. So you will be subject to a lot of abuse and not knowing if you're in abuse. So that's why we do a lot of education around teen domestic violence. So even February is going to be the Teen Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Oh,
So yes,
really?
yes,
Unfortunately.
yeah.
Huh. You know, after this is over, can we stay on? Because I want to talk to you about something that's going on in our county.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to say it right here, but yeah, that I'm glad you mentioned that. And I did not know that February was, you said teen.
Teen Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Awareness.
I did not know that. See what I'm talking about? I learn something new every time I talk to you. Are there any kind of misconceptions about domestic violence that you've all come across when you speak to other family members or even the clients?
Yeah, I say yeah. Sometimes is people don't realize, and that's why we educate people. We
Mhm.
we provide the red flags. We provide what can happen. What if, So we do have a lot of education around domestic violence because
Mhm.
we want the people to be aware and the family to. I mean, we have cases where a young lady gets killed, not killed,
Unalived.
and alive.
Unalive.
And then what happened is the family um, feels that they never really knew there was of any abuse going on. There was no way. There was always a sign, but people ignore. People will say, "Oh, I'm not gonna mind anybody's business," or "No, that's normal," and the young lady ends up dead and alive.
You know, that is a real thing about ignoring the red signs, the red flags. And I this is my opinion. I feel that it goes beyond the actual victims, survivors, that the family members as well. They oh, it's not that bad, or we didn't know. We're gonna go pray about it. And
Hmm.
I do feel that sometimes when it is brought to the forefront, that it so that it will not disrupt the family system, even as dysfunctional as it is, it's just easier
Hmm.
to sweep it under the rug and just carry on and normalize dysfunction. What are your thoughts on that?
That's true. We
Yeah.
Yeah.
normally, a lot of times, we explain away things.
Ooh.
So the person is called, the victim is normally your sister, let's say your sister. She's always calling you, always texting, you're always talking, you're always spending time together. Now she's in this relationship and you can't talk anymore.
Hmm.
That
Mm.
isolation is
Sure.
one of the flags, right?
Right.
So so it's like it's controlling behavior that's happening to her and she's being isolated. But we explain it away. It's like, oh, she must be busy. Oh, she just started this new career. We have a way to explain away what's
Wow.
happening
That's
rather than
real.
it's like seeing it and calling a spade a spade. So when we
Hmm.
see these red flags, it's like sometimes it's a red flag, but we're not necessarily aware there's a red flag. So we also don't want to beat up on ourselves for not noticing the things, because sometimes, like I said, we explain it away. We make excuses for what's happening rather than like delving deeper. Like, hey, sis, you ain't called me all week. What's going on? You know, like that type of thing. And sometimes that'll get a thing started. And the asking of like, are you okay? And not just are you okay, but like, are you okay? Are you really okay? And letting people know that it's okay to not be okay. And you can tell me I'm not okay, and let's see what we could do to fix it, if there's anything we could do to fix it.
Yeah, I like that. Especially with us, and we talked about that on the panel, especially with Black women, how we have the that superwoman complex that we're impenetrable, like nothing can bother us because we're super women. We make things happen, we have things to do, and we're just we are a brick. We just keep it going. And how can someone break us down physically, emotionally? And meanwhile, we are suffering in silence. And going back to what Dilma said about the embarrassment factor of it.
It's
And
definitely embarrassing. How am
Mhm.
I, a
Mhm.
cop,
Yep.
established in my career,
yeah.
Mhm.
strong? I've been to the police academy. I know how to fight. I've done chase criminals. I've done a lot of things. How am I going to come and tell you, my friend, my sister, my mom, my aunt, cousin, whoever, that I'm being abused?
Right.
That I'm afraid to leave my home. I can't go out with my friends anymore. How do you admit that to yourself, first of
Yes.
all, much
Mm,
less to someone else? And
Correct.
so that's where a lot of that internalizing and that shame and that
mm,
inability to come forward and say, and that's why we say it takes a lot of courage
Mhm.
to come forward and say, I have this problem, this thing is happening to me. Because it doesn't matter if you're an advocate, an investigator, the cops, the lawyer, the teacher, the doctor. It doesn't matter who you are. We are all impacted. We all are
yeah.
suffering. But if no one comes forward and speaks and say, this thing is happening to me and something needs to change,
Hmm.
nothing
Mhm.
changes. So that's what that whole shame and control is about.
Mm. So
Correct.
you mentioned an ISO. Oh, go ahead, Dilma.
No, no. I said I was agreeing.
Yeah. So Paula, you talked about isolation and the control. Can you talk about other factors of what abuse can look like, or how does it show up?
We don't recognize it in today's society because we think of it as uh okay, so you might explain it away as like jealousy, right?
Mhm.
If a
Mhm.
Mm.
person is checking your whereabouts, if you have to say, you have to have your location on. I don't have an iPhone, so I'm not one of those people. I don't know how to,
Like that's another thing we bonded over because we both are
right?
Yeah.
Android users.
Yeah.
So we exchange numbers. I'm like, damn, I hope she got an iPhone and shame me for being
And
an
I was
Android.
not. I am not. But you know how everybody's like sharing it. We're sharing location. You got to
Yeah.
know where I'm at. You know that, like, you know everything about where I am, what I'm doing. From the time I get up to the time I go to sleep. If I miss a call or miss a text message, it's like, oh my gosh, where were you? What were
Mhm.
you doing? We don't at first. Especially when like a relationship is new, you're thinking, oh my gosh, they really just want to spend time with me,
Girl,
explaining
he
it
must
away.
love me.
Right.
Mhm.
Explaining it away. Right. So it's a red flag, but we explain it away. It's like, oh, okay, well, he really wants to spend time with me. He really loves me. She really loves me. This is what's going on. This is, it's good. It's attention. So at first it's
Yeah, it's
wonderful.
cute. It's cute
Cute.
until it's not cute anymore. That's how I
Exactly.
call it. It's
Right.
Exactly.
cute. It's cute. It's touching until it's not.
Exactly.
And it
Exactly.
also can tap into that childhood trauma, if there's any, as far as the people who have that anxious attachment and you're always looking for validation,
Yes.
and then you have someone that is just love bombing the hell out of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, they turn into Idris Elba. They let
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Turn
Yeah, but
to ride or die chicks, you know?
Yes.
Anybody that's listening, if you have any questions for Dilma or Paula, you can please put them in the chat. So yeah, so we talked about the jealousy and isolation. What else? How else does it look?
no,
That could
we
be
have
kind
a
of
lot of
subliminal. Hmm.
I would say like what I call is like the invisible scars of domestic violence. So sometimes we have things like such a mental abuse,
Hmm.
right? And people don't recognize it. Oh, he's just having a bad day. He's telling you that dress is not looking good on you. He's telling you, oh, your hair is not right. Always criticizing you,
You gain a
always
lot of
put you
weight.
down. Yes. Okay. So those are flags. Those are red flags. Those
Yes.
are, it's actually an abuse.
Yes.
What we do, we keep moving because he's not putting his hands, or
Girl.
she's not putting his hands on her,
Yeah.
right? So people just, you like Paula said, we try to explain things.
Hmm.
So that's a very, very um prominent signs of domestic violence. And
Hmm.
some people don't realize it because she said, oh no, he's not hitting me,
Thank you.
you
Yes.
know, he's not hitting me.
Yes.
Just because he's not hitting you, that doesn't mean you're not a victim or you're not being abused.
Yes.
I would say cheating is a form of control as well, is a form of abuse.
Can you go into that? You talking about, yeah, like serial cheaters?
Cheaters, it's a control. He thinks he can do it, he's going to do it. For some reason he has a control over her mind, or she has a control over his mind, that every time she turns around or he turns around, there's a forgiveness. Okay, and he
Oh,
keeps on doing. How does it make me feel when he cheats? How she feeling when um how he feels when she cheats?
Hmm.
Okay,
mhm.
so it is a form of abuse that is going unnoticed. Oh, he's a cheater, whatever. Okay,
Or what
that's
they
how
say,
he is.
yep. Well, men are gonna be men. That's what they do, ma'am.
No, that's a form of control. So if a man is going out there and cheating and doing all that he wants to do, yes, he has some control over here. That's
Mm,
psychological abuse.
mm.
I do want to say, because Dylan, you made me think, as we're speaking about abuse and the control of it, it made me remember a case that we had where it was a young man that was being abused. It's hard if it's, you have to think about, if it's hard for a strong female to come forward and say, I'm being abused, you have to think about how 100 times harder it is for a man to come forward and say that he's being abused by
Yes.
Yes.
his girlfriend or wife or whoever it may be. But like I said, we have same sex domestic violence happening all the time, and we also have um, domestic violence where the women are the abusers of men. That happens as well, and you
Hmm.
have that same connection, that same bond, that same. And I think about the last young man that we had, that was paralyzed, that
Paralyzed.
by his girlfriend, and but he was still so
In
connected, so
love. Yeah.
in love with the young lady. It's hard for people to grasp that, but it's happening every day, and that's why things like this are so important, so
Hmm.
that we can bring awareness, bring knowledge, bring wisdom and understanding to this thing that's happening. And it's like I said, it's not, don't hold us to the sex, the gender roles.
Hmm.
Right.
It's because it's everybody.
It
Do
is.
you think it
So
should? Oh, go ahead, Dilma.
we have especially young men, right? They are here, and then the girlfriends are texting them, and then they know, she has to know his whereabouts all the time.
All the time.
You know what I mean? He needs to check in with her all the time.
Oh,
Uh-oh, Dilma. So while
somebody
Dilma
called her.
comes back, if you can hear me, Dilma, you can log out and log back in again if there's an issue. So, Paula, do you see that it looks different? The abuse looks different if it's the woman that is the abuser? Is it more physical or psychological or emotional?
It's
Or
both. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
really?
matter. For instance, one example I'm going to use, the young man that was in the wheelchair. She was verbally abusive and physically abusive, and he wouldn't hit her back. There are people out there. It's the same way that there are people who are the victims of the domestic violence. Some fight back, some don't, and it's equally violent. Like I said, this young man was stabbed and he ended up paralyzed. We have cases where,
What?
yeah, we have cases where the abuser has killed their partner. So
Unalived?
she's back
Unalived?
unalived. I'm sorry.
That's okay, babe. It's okay.
Unalived. I'm going to get that word together. Unalived. Those words together. We have those cases all the time, but it happens in both, and a lot in same-sex relationships where it's violent. And I don't know if it's because, and Dylan might be able to speak to the psychology of that. I don't know if it's because it's a man and a man or a woman and a woman where they think it's acceptable, where you wouldn't, like, sometimes you don't think it's acceptable for a man to hit a woman. But if a man and a man are in a relationship, somehow it's a thing. We can just fight. And then if it's a woman and a woman, somehow it's acceptable. We can just fight. So there's sometimes, but it's equal. It's not necessarily more violent when it's a man to a woman or a woman to a man. It's still the psychology is the same type of thing.
It's
That
the
same
same thing.
controlling, that same isolation. I don't want you talking to her. I don't care if that's your baby mother. I don't want you dealing with her. And they're controlling that person. And he can't even spend time with his children. He can't, all the things that he's supposed to do, see his own mother, things like that, are being controlled by that female. It happens the same way.
It's the same dynamic. It's the
Mhm.
same dynamic. Even though you think that there's a female, you have a strong female, she can have a control over that man.
Yes.
So it's the same dynamic with the women versus man versus woman. It's the same because we are people. Okay. So however we are, or how we are brought up, or whatever the trauma, so we will have a control over other people. So we had a case, right, Paula? You remember the case where the mom killed the stepdad of those two children?
Yes.
We're not gonna,
What?
so however, you can look at the little girl, that she was a little girl, she was like
Yes.
14, but we can tell that she was grown beyond her age.
Mhm.
And then she already has the characteristic that she is going to be a controller.
Mhm.
She's
Wow.
going to be, yes, and then she's going to be needed the
Yes.
therapy, so she could
Yes.
undo what
Yes.
was instilled in her already.
Yes.
So, like when I said children that witness the domestic violence, they either become an abuser or they become a
A victim.
victim.
Yes.
So that's the plain, simple, and that's it.
Mhm. It's a fact.
Yeah. And with that being said, I wish we could uh get rid of that saying. Say, so there's a man and woman in a relationship, a mother and father, and the father, I hate to be gender specific, but I am just this time, just as an example. that the father is horrible to the mother, but he's good to the kids. And then you hear that saying, well, he may not be a good husband, but he's a great father to the kids. But I feel like that people just ignore the kids and think that they're so resilient that they're not going to see the issues that are going on. And piggybacking on what Dilma said about being repeating the cycle or not.
Mm-hmm. But even if he's good to the children, he's not good to the mama. He's not a good role model at all. Because what happened is
Exactly.
he is instilling the same energy and the same behavior to the children. So the
Yes.
children, he's messing up the children.
Yes.
Yep.
No matter how good he is with the children, not good to the mama, all the work that he's doing to make sure he's good to the children is not effective.
And we have to pay attention to those cases where how those, can I say murder suicide? Can I say
yeah?
we have to pay attention to those cases where the abuser unalives the victim himself and the children.
Yeah.
So sometimes, yes, there are those cases where the abuser is good to the children, but we have to remember they are those cases where the abuser will kill the children too.
Yeah,
Unalived.
because
unalived. You see a lot of cases like that.
Yes, we don't prosecute it because the abuser is unalive, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But we have some of those that survive. We have a lot of cases that the abuser, that stayed alive. They killed the victim, but an alive victim, but they survive, which is those that we prosecute. But we have a lot of those, and I don't have the numbers, but I mean, we had a lot of those last year.
Really?
Yes. It's very prevalent. Yes.
Wow. That is some of the things I wanted to, I've been recently, because I read a case, I think day before yesterday. Yes, it was Monday. I read a case yesterday of a child being unalived by the father. And it made me start looking at the relationship with the mother and the father. And what I realized is the mother was already experiencing domestic violence between her and the father. And sometimes you think, just like you just said, he's good to the kids. They're never going to hurt the kid. They're never going to hurt the children.
Right.
But the children are hurt, whether they are physically hurt or emotionally scarred for the rest of their life, because there's nothing like experiencing your mother being beaten by your father or by her boyfriend or her husband or new husband or whoever it is. There's also nothing like being a child witnessing your father being killed by your mother. There's nothing like that. And so people think when we think about DV, when we think about domestic violence, we're thinking about the abuser and the victim, but there's more victims than the one victim.
Yes.
Wait, let me let that process that. There's more victims than one victim.
Yes.
Oh.
Vicarious trauma.
It's trauma.
Yes.
I was there. I saw it. It didn't happen to me, but I was there and I saw it. I witnessed it. And so how does that impact me? Just like Dilma was saying earlier, how does that child grow up? That child grows up, statistically, the child grows up, just like she said, to be the abuser or the victim. We have those happy coincidences where the child grows up and has decided, I will not tolerate one or the other. I will not have this in my life at all. And we love that. But statistically, that's not what happens.
Mhm.
Wow.
Let me just speak back on what she said about the child being unalive, and then the mom was experiencing uh, domestic violence with the father. So we have to understand the psychology behind that. However, suicide, murder, suicide is always to hurt the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a form of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she wants the abuser wants the victim to suffer. He would have killed, that's right, he would have killed
Unalived.
the unalive unalive the child, so she can suffer. You understand that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We had
Yeah.
I had a couple years ago, um I, I worked I was working at the DA's office, and then one friend, close friend with the former DA that was working there, the wife, okay, so the husband had gone and be with somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but they had a with this victim, with this person, they had two lovely children, which the money was not an issue. Like he would pay for everything for them, and the man was rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one day, they had just came from a vacation. The family that he left just came from vacation. They
Mm-hmm.
came from Paris, whatever. But the man was getting ready to get married with this other lady. So the wife killed her two children and killed herself as well.
What?
So we have to understand the dynamic. The dynamic of domestic violence goes beyond our imagination. It goes beyond even what the psychiatrist has determined, because
Right.
you never know what this one is thinking. Okay, because when they hurt, they go to this extent of like hurting that person even more.
Mm. Mm.
So this was the former wife, okay, that did that. He wanted him to suffer just like she was suffering, or she
Mm-hmm.
was jealous.
Mm-hmm.
She no longer had a control over him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
now, but he's forever going to be controlled by her actions.
Yes,
Wow.
definitely. Definitely.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's heavy.
Mm-hmm. All
It
day, every
is.
day.
Wow. So, what I also learned at the panel that we were on, I never thought about. So, we're talking about the vicarious trauma and the trickle down effects. I
Mm-hmm.
never thought about the pets as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Do you remember that young lady that talked about the organization that's here
Hmm.
where it
Mm-hmm.
takes, yeah, I had
Hampton
no,
House, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A Hampton House, yes.
Mm-hmm.
yes. I never thought about that whatsoever. And again, that's a form of control as well. Because people love their pets.
Of
Mm-hmm.
course, and on a lot of abuser, it starts with the animals. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so in a lot of the victims, they don't leave because they don't have a place for their animals. If they leave, a lot of shelters don't take animals,
Mm-hmm.
so they have to stay because of that pet. And then a lot of times the abusers start abusing the pet.
Yes.
Yes.
They're babies. They like their babies. They
Mm-hmm.
start doing that. So
Whew. I'm gonna read a couple of because the chat's been popping, but the conversation's been so good. I'm gonna read some. So, one person wants to know, going back to Dilma's statement about February being Youth Violence Awareness Month. She wanted to know, was that nationwide or is it just the month?
I believe it's a nationwide.
I would
I
think
believe
so.
it's yes, yes. But I
Mhm.
can provide more information about it. I'm having an event in Gwinnett And on February the 24th, we're going to have the event there. But if they need any information, I'll be happy to give them the
Right.
information.
And you all can, whatever information you have as well, you can always send it to me. And over time, as I get it, I'll put it in the show description notes. So when people watch this episode or listen to it on the audio podcast, it'll be readily available for them. Okay.
Okay. I have designed a brochure for specifically for teen victims of domestic violence as well. So we have that in our office. We can give it to you. You
Yeah.
can post it, um, however
Yeah,
you want.
that would be great. Someone else said my ex would threaten that if I left him, he would make sure the children and I end up on welfare. See, that's the financial abuse as
Mental
well.
abusive.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Let's see. Um, there was some more. Okay, here it is. Um, okay, Malika, thank you for this statement. She is on point. She said,
Yeah.
sometimes people confuse toxicity with love.
Mhm.
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct.
But you got to think that that goes back to if that's how you were raised, if that's what you saw, if that's what you were taught, you got to think about it. We're not. Some people are afraid to show affection. Spouses are afraid to show affection towards each other in front of their children for it looking, too touchy feely or things like that. But
Soft.
then you'll have people that'll beat on each other in front of the children,
Hmm.
Isn't
So
it
it's like,
something?
yes, yeah,
Yes.
yes. It's true. It's like you got to think about it. Ask yourself, like, do you remember your parents kissing affectionately? Like, do you remember them holding hands?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You have to think about it. And so, like, you don't see that. So, are we teaching our children how to love? So, of
Hmm.
Mm,
course, we grow up with these adults. That's like, is it toxicity? Is it love? Do they know? How do they know?
Hmm.
So that's where that comes from.
Correct.
mm. Malika also said, just because someone acts the fool about you does not mean they love you. It's just a
No.
form of control. Love does not
cor-
stifle.
That
Correct. It's
that
absolute.
say that. My sister Tammy says, you ain't gotta love me to death.
Mm.
And that
Ooh,
is factual information. You don't have to love me to death. You can leave me, divorce me, we can go our separate ways.
Correct.
right.
That is not love. That is not love. It's
Not
toxic and it's
whatsoever.
unhealthy. And it like you're right. Love does not stifle. It's not controlling. It's not possessive. It's not jealous. It's only two things.
Good thing.
If I can say what the book say, it's only two things. Love is patient and it is kind. Period. So it's definitely not stifling. It's definitely not controlling, and it's not going to love you to death.
Wow. That part.
Mhm.
That part. Um, Malika said, exactly. That's what the children expect from the relationships they will one day have.
Exactly.
And Malika, you've just been dropping some gems. I love it. Doris, thank you for your comment. She said it was hard to see this in high school that a football player or like football player hitting their cheerleader girlfriend in the hallways. People would just walk by that we were all young.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. And what do
Right.
you do as a child? You're a child yourself, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So that's
Right.
why we have to have these educational talks
Mm-hmm.
to explain to the children, to the young people, what to do when you see this, what to say, how to
Mm-hmm.
act, who to tell, and how to help, and if you're experiencing it, what to do to get help.
Hmm.
Correct. Now we teach the young kids like what is the sign? You know,
Yes,
so if red flags. If they talking to you any kind of way, you
yes,
don't have to accept that. Like you have to be respected. If he's not respecting you, it's not loving you.
no,
Exactly.
you call
And
you
to not
everything.
talk it away.
No.
Mhm.
Um, Tommy, thank you. I love this
Yes,
comment.
yes.
I stand 10 toes. He said therapy is important to break the cycle.
She,
Correct.
She.
Tammy.
Oh, hold on. Let me adjust the bifocals. I really cannot see. It really looked like an O to me. Thank you.
Miss Tammy. No, Miss Tammy, you're absolutely right. Therapy is important because
Mhm.
we have to unprogram, unlearn, and relearn what is correct. Like take away this thing that we've been programmed to think is acceptable and understand what is acceptable. It's not acceptable for somebody who says they love you to be calling you everything but a child of God.
Right.
Correct.
Call me
Yeah.
my name.
Yeah.
You know, right. And you know, one indicator too, and I feel we do know that when something is toxic, because let a platonic friend say and do the same actions, we will cut them off.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We just would.
Yes.
And but then when we're in these toxic relationships that we'll explain it away, knowing damn well that if it was the other way around, your girlfriend would be gone. Just
Mm-hmm.
the friendship is just it's eliminated. But he had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He just had a bad day. Sometimes he gets short tempered, you know?
Work is stressful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So what have you all encountered when the victim blame themselves?
And that's normal. That's normal and not normal, but we count that a lot.
It happens a lot.
I It happens a lot, and then victim will say, I made him do it. I was having a bad day, and I didn't mean to provoke him. I was the one
Mm-hmm.
that provoked him. And I'm just remembering a case that I had. They were living together, and he was mad, and he actually picked up the baby out of the car seat and threw across the
What?
wall.
Mm.
Yes. And she came in, and then we charged him, and she came in and said, no, I lied, he didn't do it. um I was upset. I was the one that provoked him. He's nice. He never does anything like that. But I was extreme. I was having extremely, yeah, postpartum depression, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that she said, and then she gave us the excuse, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But then a couple months later, and I don't know how she felt, and she's like, Miss Dilma, I'm gonna go and tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then she told me, she's like, that's exactly what happened. I didn't do anything to him. He just upset with me, and he wanted to throw the baby. He threw the baby across the hall.
Damn.
And, you know, so victim blames themselves all the
All
time,
the time. Yeah.
Right.
all the time.
So this question is for you, Paula. How does it look on the legal end when someone, I guess they call you all come out, and then you all press charges, but then the victim will rescind what they said, going back to what Dilma said, or yeah, what Dilma said, how they'll make excuses. How does it look on the legal end? Do you all still have to go through with the prosecution, or you just go with what the victim requests?
What? So we will prosecute.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And like I said, we get cursed out, we get lied to, we get yelled at, we get doors slammed in our faces, we are called everything but a child of God. But what we cannot live with, and why we do what we do and why we're passionate about what we do, is if we do not prosecute. So this time it's a black eye.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to prosecute, right? So then
Mm-hmm.
we say, oh, okay, we drop the charges, don't worry about it, it's no big deal. Okay, you don't want to do it, fine. The next time we hear about you is on the news because you are on a live.
And I'm alive.
Mm.
Correct.
We cannot and will not stand for that. So
Yes.
we have to, we're doing it. You're going to hate me. By the end of the people hate us. The victims hate us, and sometimes you get, majority of times you get people that are very grateful. But you get
Mhm.
those cases where people absolutely hate you. You're destroying their finances, just like the young lady shared. You're
Yeah.
destroying their finances. You're taking away the breadwinner. You're taking away daddy. You're taking away you're taking away mommy. It's hard for the family. So they
Mm.
absolutely hate you, but it's to protect you in the end. So that's why we do what we do, because we cannot live with ourselves if we don't do something and then you end up unalive, or he or she leaves you and it's the next person that
Right.
suffers.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Woo, that's so true. I had a guest on last year and she talked about the same. The story was so bizarre, but she said the same thing, that the person he was in a high speed chase
Mm,
and he ended up passing away from the crash. But she said because he's hurt so many people physically,
Mhm.
emotionally, mentally, that she's like, you know what? It ends right now. It is ended because
mhm.
even though she was out of the relationship, he was already doing the same things to the person
Somebody else.
after her.
Mhm.
And he had, I don't know if he was prosecuted, but he was definitely a person of interest of
Mm,
unaliving an ex prior to
Mhm.
them. So you see how it keeps going. And
Mhm.
so she said that when she drove by the car accident, and she said she did not know it was him in the car.
wow.
And she said
Mhm.
as she was approaching it, she still had no idea. She said she felt something just come over her physically. She drove
Mm,
by the accident and did not know it was him in the car.
wow.
And then she started getting phone calls from people like, "Hey, have you heard that such and such? It
Wow.
looks like his car," because it was on the news, a high
Mm,
speed chase on the freeway. And she's like, "No, I don't. We don't keep in touch." And she got home and she
mhm.
saw the car, and then of course the name came out, and she said it has ended.
Wow.
And it's like
Wow.
the reign of terror has ended. Yeah.
Wow.
Whew.
Amazing.
It
Yes.
was something to listen to. But can we talk about the immigrants who are here who do not want to report any domestic violence for fear of being deported?
Yes, we have a lot, even with the people that, telling us now in our office, we have programs that we
Yes.
help people, resources that, for example, if the person doesn't want, if it's something not as serious, domestic violence is always a serious case.
Serious. Mhm.
Mhm.
So, however, but we look into the situations where there's children, there's financial. So we have programs where we can send them to. We're working with a company called it's called Family First. So
Mhm.
we give them resources for the family where the
Mhm.
children can get counseling, the abuser can get counseling, and then the victim can get counseling and can get the
Mhm.
wraparound service where the family can be helped.
Yes.
Mm.
Mm.
So for immigrants, we have a lot of cases where we have people that don't report the crimes for fears of being deported. There's a lot of resources.
Yes.
If you are a victim of a crime, we do have a U visa, which we will approve. Will sign. Um, so you will have to do the immigration paper. You have to hire an attorney to do the paperwork. But we will
Mhm.
sign all the paperwork required for you to get a visa for you to stand the trial.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm.
Do a lot of people, do they actually take that route and know that there is help that can help them even with their status in the US?
Yes, it is a lot. Especially we have in the Hispanic community. So we have a lot of people that come here and then they have multiple families in homes,
Mhm.
right? So the children, can be sexually assaulted.
Yes.
So
Essayed.
Essayed.
essayed, right? So, however, they'll come, someone will report.
Hmm.
They don't always report, but the school, if the children disclose at school, so this case come to us. But a lot of time, so when it happens, they tell us they don't want to go forward with prosecution, fear of retaliation of the family in that country.
Hmm.
Right?
Mm,
So
wow.
even though we offer them to stay here, but they're afraid to take the services because of the retaliation of the family members that is in that country.
Hmm.
Yes. But we do help them. We make sure that we provide extensive service, that they can make sure that we make sure that they understand what is going on, and then what can we do for them.
Mm. Any other resources that you can just think of off the top of your head?
We have a lot of resources. Like,
A lot.
if people think like um, you can stay in abusive relationship because there's no resources, there's a lot of resources. We
A
work
lot.
hand in hand with partnership against domestic violence. They in the office, so whenever
Hmm.
the case comes in, and they'll take care. It's like rents, there's utilities. However,
Yes.
everything that you need. We also have resource for people that are unalive, like we pay for the funeral services. We pay for,
Really?
yes, for a crime scene cleaning. We support. For example, you have a husband, which is the supporter, right? You are a
Right.
victim of domestic violence. Do you know that you can get the support? You can get up to $10,000 in support because you lost that income. If you can prove that he was the main um, provider for you.
Wow.
Yes. And then
Wow.
we have medical bills. We have programs that pays for medical bills, pets bills. There's tons of
That's
resources.
a lot of
So
resources.
there's no reason for someone to stay in an abusive relationship, because there are resources out there.
So that's why it's very important that even though there are several resources, but if your mind is not there to do it, that's why the therapeutic part is so
Important.
important.
Hmm.
Like
Yes.
Tammy said, not Tommy,
Tim.
Tammy said about it being important to break the cycle. Because
Correct.
once you get past that barrier and you see how much is available, but sometimes we stop our own selves and not blaming. It's just it is what it is. Trauma bombs are real.
The thing
Correct.
is to get
But
people to come forward. That's the thing. Because you
hmm
won't know what resources are available if you're not coming forward
correct.
to say
Mhm.
that you are a victim of a crime.
You said this. Oh, go ahead, Dilma.
No, I was going to say the same thing she said. It takes time for people to come forward, but once they come
Mhm.
forward, there's always resources that are available to help them.
Hmm. I remember both of you had said during that panel we were on about the different or the several layers of embarrassment and shame and guilt. Because I never thought about that either until you all mentioned it. So there's the initial contact, and then you have to tell when Paula,
Oh
when you show up, or then they will have to talk to the advocate when Dilma shows up. Then
yeah.
they have to talk to the judge, go, and they have to keep reliving that story.
Correct.
Never
Yes.
thought about that.
Yes.
Never.
It's so we have to be careful on our end, with what we do, that we are not re-victimizing the victim.
Mm.
It's
Correct.
that retelling every time, over and over
Mhm.
and over and over, is traumatizing every single time you have to tell that story and relive that moment. So we have to be careful. We have to be delicate with how we deal with the victims and survivors of these crimes. So that's why we have a team and it's multifaceted, and it's a whole, like Dilma was saying, a wraparound service.
Hmm. I cannot wait until I get some of these resources to put on, especially with the audio podcast, because there's over 100,000 downloads. So people are listening, people are watching. Um, on a lighter note, well, before we get to that, are there anything else you all like to add? Or maybe talk about some success stories.
Success stories. Okay. I have, there's never successful stories in the DV. Let me just say, but we
Yeah.
do save lives. We do
Mhm.
have people
Yes.
that has come to us. And then if we have what is called evidence-based prosecution. So we will prosecute the person even if the victim recants, right?
Wait. What
Mhm.
is evidence-based prosecution? I never heard of that.
Okay, so we prosecute based on the evidence that we have. Like if the person's unalive,
Yeah.
okay. So Paula, explain that better, because
Yeah, I want to hear. We want to hear it. Y'all tag team this.
The evidence, so the evidence that's collected, that's why it's important how the initial officers on the scene, how they collect the evidence, that they actually write detailed reports that state everything that has happened, that's taken place from the time they were received the call until they leave the scene. All of that needs to be logged. And so evidence is, physical evidence is stuff like a knife, a gun,
Mm.
a cord or whatever might have been used to abuse the victim. So that evidence is collected. So we have cases where the victim and the defendant have gotten back together now, right? We're in this relationship, we love each other, and and so now she's like, nope, none of that happened. It didn't happen. He pulled my hair out because it's just rough. That's just what we do. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't an assault. It And they completely and will go on the stand and lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the cases that we had like that, that's most memorable in my mind, the what led the jury to convict is the fact that the body worn camera of the officer on the scene at the time showed the victim crying, hair disheveled because it was pulled out, crying, saying, "You hit me. Why did you do this to me?" Because he's there on the scene as well. The victim is there, and she's just crying and yelling and screaming about how she has just been assaulted.
Ooh.
And what we have is, you got to think about when this crime happens. This crime may have happened in 2019, but it
Mm.
doesn't get prosecuted. It doesn't get all the way through the system from the time of the report all the way till we go see a judge for a trial. It might be 2022.
Mm-hmm.
It
What?
might be 2024. Yes.
Yeah.
So do they still? How does that work? They're still living together? How
They,
can?
they have gotten back together. They have had a baby. They have moved on. Am I lying, though?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Wow.
They are gotten back together, and you are there, like you are the bane of their existence. You are there to cause problems. You are not there to do anything but disrupt their life because they have moved on from this thing. But what people don't realize is I can behave long enough to get through trial.
Correct. Yes.
Mm.
Sometimes.
Exactly.
That's
Sometimes.
real.
I can behave long enough to get you to come back and tell the prosecutors, "Hey, I don't want to do this." To go back to the police officer and say, "Sir, I lied. This is not what happened. He didn't do this. She didn't do this to me. It is not what happened. And these charges need to be dismissed." I can behave long enough for you to do that.
Correct.
And sometimes, even if I'm not behaving, you still have that little bit of hope. Things are going to get better, that this
Mm-hmm.
is just a phase. It's just a bad day. It's just he or she lost their job. They're just going through something. But once we get past this phase, it's going to get better. So they want to stay. And that's where this evidence-based prosecution comes in, because now I don't have you, the victim, to corroborate what happened. So now we have to just rely strictly on the evidence
Mm.
to prosecute the abuser and make sure that justice is done. And like I said, it's to protect you as the victim,
Yep.
and also to protect society, because there's another person out there that this person is going to do this to. When you look at these cases, you are not the first one,
Mm-hmm.
and won't be the last if someone doesn't stop this behavior.
And
Mm.
you have to understand too, sometimes like the cycle, how it goes. Maybe January 2015, he hit her. He could go 3 years, and hit her again. So it
Mhm.
doesn't, why the victims stay is because it doesn't happen every day. Because I can never imagine if a person gets beat every day, every day, every day,
Mhm.
they're gonna leave.
Mhm.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a cycle. Like you have a honeymoon phase, either you have a calmness, and then you have the aggression. So it goes, it flows. So we have to understand that he might not kill her, you know, um, today, but 3 years, 2 years from now, it might.
Right.
Those are successful stories. We have to make
Yes.
sure we
Yes.
save lives.
Success is definitely when a life is saved, and
Yeah.
success in my eyes is measured when we have made it clear
Yeah.
that this is wrong, it should not happen, and we are going to hold you accountable for what happened, and
Mm.
we're going to make sure that everybody gets the resources, like Dilma says, to help them get through this, and then to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because sometimes we go into the next relationship we go into, we accept the same type of behavior. It's that
Exactly.
vicious cycle.
Mm. Do you all prosecute the victim who perjures themselves when you have evidence that, like, you're lying? This is what body cam 1 is showing. How does that work? You see, I'm learning this lingo.
No, because they're a true victim, right?
Okay,
They're a true
good.
victim. So they're not doing this maliciously. What we will look at is people who come with false claims in the first place. So what I mean is, if you're lying in the first place, if this person has never hit you,
Mhm.
has never hit you, and they've never hit you, but you found them cheating,
Mm.
and so now, okay, they're cheating on me, so okay, I know how to get you, and you go and file this false police report.
Okay.
That person has to face the consequences.
Got it. Okay. Wow. The intricacies of it. How can someone, or is there a way someone can prosecute with emotional abuse?
It's very
Mm.
hard. It is very,
Yeah.
because it hasn't society has now have recognized that emotional abuse is a form of domestic abuse. So I have gone to I've helped women get a restraining order, or like a temporary protection order from the abuser that are emotionally abusive.
Hmm.
But it's very hard.
It's very hard.
It's
That's
very
what
hard.
I've read. That's unfortunate
Hmm.
because it's so prevalent.
Yeah, it is. It is more than we can think about it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. This is like a SVU unit right here.
It is.
It is. And I love it because we look like each other, you know? Not just what you see on TV. Like, it's some brown girls. We doing it.
Yeah.
So on a lighter note, before we end, what do you all do for your own self-care? Because this is a lot to take on. This is your daily lives, what you all do. What do you all do?
I love to travel. I
Mhm.
exercise a lot, and then when it's time to go, I have to take 4 or 5 days and go traveling the
Mhm.
world, and just forget about this place, and just take a little bit, little bit of time for myself.
Mhm. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Same there, traveling. But for me, I'm an advocate of counseling. I have a counselor. I keep a counselor. I have a counselor. I'm in love with her. We are best friends.
And that's what I'm gonna have to be good at it. I have a therapist, but like I don't see him that often. I
Mm-hmm.
I definitely believe in counseling. I see my counselor regularly, a minimum of once a month. When I'm going through something, twice a month. I bought a Peloton. Uh,
Oh,
bought a Peloton. So working out, traveling, but definitely, and spending time with my family and friends. That's what like paramount for me. Like the time with my family and friends, eating, drinking, and being merry, and just
Yeah.
fellowshipping is tops on my list. But counseling.
I need to have you back on again for the benefits of therapy. I love talking about therapy and the benefits. It's a game changer,
Definitely.
absolute game changer. And it's a oh, here you have something. Hold on. Janice said Paula also stays in touch with family.
That's my Aunt Janice. Yes, I do. I love I tell
Hey,
family.
Auntie.
Family is extremely important to me. It's how I was raised, and I continue that in my adulthood, and I try to teach it to my children that family is important, because at the end of the day, that's who's going to be there for you.
Absolutely. Any parting words
Ugh.
from either one of you?
I think I would say, first off, thank you for putting this together and having us on. Thank you for the opportunity, because this is such a difficult topic. It's something that's hard. It's hard and it's heavy, and no one really wants to tackle this. No one wants to talk about this, but it's important, and especially in our culture, especially as Black women. We need to women of color. We need to embrace who we are and acknowledge that it's okay to I'm sorry, my bad, is granddad. And it's okay to say I'm not okay. My counselor,
Yeah,
it's okay to say I'm not okay, and it's okay to say I need help.
okay. And I will say thank you for having us here as well. And I will say that this is a passion of mine. I
hmm
love doing this. I don't work a day in my life. If I can reach anyone, if you want to reach me, you want to talk to me about anything, Ursula, you can give them my number. I'm happy to help. And I'm big in empowering. I think empowerment is very important, um,
hmm
because what happened is like I'm not a person. I work differently. I help people, but I go to a different angle, because I feel that by empowering anyone, you can help that person walk away from relationships. So,
Yes,
and then not being so judgmental when someone is going through something, because we can't judge if we can understand.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Oh, you know what? Dilma and Paula, guess what? You both are Black girls that have their shift together.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti. Black girl magic, melanin popping. Whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls